Hey everybody out there in the VC, it's Matt. Hope everyone is having a good weekend, and it's that time again. It's time to do another Rolling Stones album review, and doing those sequentially, of course. So I'm up to this one, Tattoo You, from 1981. Very memorable album for me, because it came out at a great time in my life, and a lot of Rolling Stones memories in particular from this album, and just a lot of life in general memories from 1981 there. Still in high school. I was, I think, 17 years old when this came out, and early 80s were such a great time. Kind of wish I jump in a time machine and go back to late 70s, early 80s, and just stay there. I'd be fine with that. But a lot of great memories with this, and we'll get into that. But when I heard that there was a new Rolling Stone album coming out, I approached it with a little bit of trepidation, because a couple of 3 years or so earlier, I thought Some Girls was a great album, just a cohesive return to form knockout punch of an album, iconic Stones album. Then came Emotional Rescue a couple of years later, which was album I liked some of it not so much, kind of uneven, a little bit of a letdown after Some Girls. As I said in my review of that album, the review before this one, my opinion, my estimation of that album has increased somewhat over the years. But when I knew there was a new album coming out, I wasn't sure what to expect. Was this going to be on par with Some Girls? Was this going to be kind of a uneven Emotional Rescue type album? Or worse, was it going to be even worse than that? Happy to say that this is a strong, really good album, and I think it's their last good album, or their last great album. They had a couple after this that were okay, but really good album, and it's an album that really should at work, in theory at least, because the band toured in 1981, and they wanted to have an album out to promote on the tour. I guess in 1975 when they toured, I believe that's pretty much the only time they toured without having an album out, and that didn't look so good. So they wanted to make sure they had an album out, but they're just, with the tour preparations gearing up and everything, there just wasn't time to write new songs and put an album together. So what happened was, and I think it was mainly Mick, I don't know how much Keith was involved, but Mick and the rest of the band, and the guy that produced this album with them, and I forgot to write his name down, I can't remember it, but he went through a lot of the old tapes and songs that were laying around from earlier albums. So this is a odds and sods leftovers affair of an album, sort of a hodgepodge, and you've got music dating back to 72 and 73, the sessions, what became Goat's Head Soup. You've got stuff that was left off of Black and Blue, and then off of Some Girls, and off of Emotional Rescue. So you've got all these 8 or 9 years worth of leftover tracks from different eras of the band's existence, and they're all sort of thrown on here together, and it should be sort of, you would think that would be sort of a jumble and uneven Frankenstein of an album, but it's really flows and really cohesive and works out. You've even got side one where you've got the sort of upbeat or the rocking songs, some soul songs, but they're all upbeat for the most part, and then you've got side two, which is a slower pace, and your ballads. So you've got sort of a night and day vibe on the album, and it really works out well to the benefit of the album. So it's just sort of a surprise. Now these old songs, I think some of them were strictly instrumentals, just music they'd worked up. I don't know that they had lyrics, and so I think Mick and Keith came in and added some lyrics. But I think some of the songs were finished, were songs with lyrics and music from back in 72, 76, 78, whenever, that they just used. I don't know if they re-recorded them or updated them. I think some of them they dubbed in some new parts on the old songs and used them. Some of them they may have re-recorded. But by and large, these are all older songs at the time. I think there are 2 or 3 songs that were brand newly written specifically for this album. But the majority of it are songs that date back quite a few years in some cases. So, anyway, we got the cover. It's okay. I don't know. There's Mick all tatted up about 10 or 15 years before that became the fashion. And on the back you got Keith. You got the bright colors. It looks like an early 80s album cover for sure. Sort of new wave-ish. It's an alright cover. It's, I don't know, not one of their best, but it's okay. And of course, unfortunately, you got no Charlie or Ronnie or Bill on the cover anywhere. On the inside, you've got this goat or horse or whatever that is wearing a slipper. And then you got this on the back. Do that enough, you get hypnotized and disoriented. So that's the album there. Like I said, great memories of this. I was happy when the album came out because I thought it was really good. Thought it was good back then. Still do. I think it's just a scooch below Some Girls. Not quite as good as that album, but it's quite a bit better than Emotional Rescue. And I always think of those 3 albums as a trilogy for some reason. Not sure why, but I always have. And so I would say Some Girls, this album, and Emotional Rescue. And I like all 3 of them quite a bit, but this would be the second best of the bunch. So this was the first time, like I said, they toured in 81. This is the first time I ever saw the Rolling Stones in concert. I saw them and only seen them twice. Saw them in 81 and in 89. And so much excitement. I talked on those other videos about my buddy John that I grew up with. He lived next door to me. He was a huge Stones fan. That's his favorite band back then, still is. He was Stones and Beatles, and I was Beatles and Kinks and Jam and Stones. But anyway, so he was a huge Stones fan. So we were all excited about the fact that Stones were coming on tour because we didn't get a chance to see them in 78. And so I remember you knew they were coming on tour because of Red Cream and Trouser Press and Rolling Stone and all that. So you knew the tour was coming. We didn't know yet whether they would be playing. The tour dates hadn't been announced yet. And so we were a little nervous of that, hoping they would play Fort Worth or Dallas and not knowing. Fortunately, they did. But I remember I had to go to school one day, and one of the rock stations, getting ready to go to school, said they were going to have a major concert announcement at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Can't remember. I think it was 9 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, crap, man, that might be the Rolling Stones. Maybe I should stay home from school. But I had to, something going on at school that day, a long time ago, I don't remember what. So I went ahead and went to school and thinking, man, that's going to suck if that's, they announce Rolling Stones, tickets go on sale and they sell out and we don't get tickets. So I went to school, and about 9, a little after 9, I'm in whatever class I was in. Someone comes in and says, hey, they need you you need to go to the office. I wasn't even thinking about the Rolling Stones. I was thinking, I didn't do anything. I'm innocent. Why do I need to go to the office? But I went. And the assistant principal or whoever said, oh, hey, your mom called. She's not feeling well. She needs to come home and drive her to the doctor. And I thought, and I'm worried about that. I thought, well, okay, let me call. So I call my house and nobody answers. And I'm like a little more worried about that. Well, I had not taken my car to school that day. I had ridden to school with a friend. So I told the principal, okay, well, I'm going to go on home. So I started walking home, which was about a couple of 2 or 3 miles, from my school to the house. And I'm walking down the street, and here comes my mom and my buddy John, his mom, driving the car, my mom in the car, them two. They pull up, hey, get in. And I'm like, hey, well, Mom, you all right? Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine. It's like, well, no, the Rolling Stones tickets are about to go on sale here in about 3 hours, and we came to get you to take you down to get tickets. And I'm like, crap, okay, great. And, I think back on that, I think, my mom, born in 1925, who was Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra fan and thought the Rolling Stones were a bunch of racket, but she pulled me out of school to go get Rolling Stones tickets, and that's one of the many wonderful memories I have of my mom, who I miss every day. But that was a good one. So anyway, my mom and John's mom drive me downtown, and they were gonna go on sale at like noon or whatever, the tickets. They were playing the Cotton Bowl on Halloween 1981, but the tickets were going to be sold at the Fort Worth Convention Center and the Dallas Convention Center. So basically they drive me downtown, and here's the convention center, and they pull up to the curb and say, okay, they gave me money to get 3 tickets. Ended up going, it was me, my buddy John, and his little brother. We all went. So, and then they took off, which was funny. I was thinking about that later. I was wondering, I don't remember how I got home, but somehow I did. I don't know if I called them and they came and got me, or I got on a bus or whatever, but that's not important. So I get out at the convention center, and this is about 9:30, 9:45, something like that. Tickets aren't going to go on sale till noon or so. And I'm worried going out there because I'm thinking, man, I bet, this might sell out. Even get out there. Get out. Convention Center covers like 3 or 4 city blocks downtown, and it's a big, huge thing. And they let me out, and there's really no one around. And I'm thinking, okay, man, maybe I'm one of the first people out here, so I'll get up by the box office, and I'll be, up toward the front of the line. I walk around the block because it's sort of a weird configuration of how that building is, and walk, and then I see people, and the line's going down this way, and the line's like, and I'm like, son of a bitch. So I walk and I walk and I walk and I walk, and I get to the end of the line, and this is, like I said, 2.5, 3 hours before tickets are even going to go on sale. And I get to the end of the line, and I'm all nervous, thinking like, crap, man, if the line in Fort Worth is like this, the line in Dallas is this long or longer. It's going to be 3 hours before they start selling tickets. Probably start selling tickets before they even get halfway through this line. This show's going to sell out, and we're not going to get to go. So I'm all flustered about that. And finally I just figure, well, it is what it is. Just kick back and wait and see what happens. And so I start looking around, and I notice that there's in front of me, and by this time there's people behind me coming up, and the line behind me is pretty long, but in front of me there's these 3 girls, and I think, well, at least got something to look at for the next 3 hours. And 2 of the girls are facing each other talking, and I'm like, hey, what up, baby? It ain't too bad, those girls are, they're like 10s, so that's good. Got a nice view. And the other girl's got the back of her head, she's what I'm looking at, because she's talking to a girl that's in front of them. That girl she's talking to is really good looking too. And then finally the girl with her back turned to me turns around to talk to her other friends, and she wasn't a 10 though, not even close to a 10, but say she was probably more like a 48. And so I'm like, and that's basically how I stayed for the next 3 hours. Those girls probably thought they had a special needs kid standing behind them there, but good God, that was one of the best looking girls I've ever seen in my life. And 40 years later, I can still picture exactly what she looked like. So that was nice to be able to enjoy that while I was in line waiting to get a ticket. Anyway, finally the box office opens, go through the line, took quite a while. I was thinking, man, it's going to sell out, it's going to sell out. With my luck, I'm going to get there And right when I get to the window, the ticket guy's going to say, sorry, the girls in front of you just bought the very last tickets. Tough luck, kid. Maybe they'll tour again someday and you see them then. But none of that happened. We got tickets. We ended up getting general admission tickets, or some of the other people were walking around talking about they got reserve tickets or seat tickets. And at the time, I was thinking, well, crap, they got the good tickets and we got the crummy general admission tickets. But that's okay. We're going to go see the Rolling Stones. So whatever we got, as long as we get to see the band. And that was in September something. So it was like a month and a half before the actual show. And then the show comes. We go out there. Another buddy of ours, Mike, he had gotten the ticket on his own or whatever. So we went with him. He drove. We went out there the night before the show. So October 30th, headed out to Dallas, the Cotton Bowl, I don't know, about 5 o'clock or so. Ended up just walking around all night long, us and a ton of other people. The show, the Cotton Bowl holds like 80,000 people, so there were just thousands and thousands of people. In the middle of all that mess, because we knew other people that were going, but in the middle of that mess, we ran into some other friends that we knew were going to go, and they were there. And so in the middle of that thousands of people, we run into them. So we all had the general admission seats, and then they didn't actually let people into the show till the next morning around 10 o'clock, 9 or 10 o'clock. We get in and we figure out that the people with the reserve seats are the seats around the stadium, and the general admission is down on the floor, no seats, you just have to stand and all. But we're like, well, hey, this is even better because we're right up in front of the stage. And we were. And then we had to hang out for a few hours before the show started. And that was fun. People were just hanging out and talking. I remember John's little brother Lance fell asleep. We're kind of laughing because we looked over and people were laying on the ground and all that stuff. And this girl was asleep that had been talking to us, but she fell asleep. And Lance fell asleep, and we look over and he's using her as a pillow. So we're kind of like, man, but anyway, once the show started, everybody crowds into the front, and you're like sardines. And every once in a while, the crowd would shift, and there was just nothing you could do but go with it. It was like getting caught in the current of an ocean. But when you're 17, that was quite a bit of fun. It's not anything I'd want to do nowadays. That would suck to be down there at my age, or even after you're 20 or so. But it was a lot of fun. And so the band came out. We saw them. The opener was ZZ Top. Not a band I've ever been crazy about. They're okay, but they do put on a hell of a show. I will give them that. And then of course the Rolling Stones. Some of the I think the Go-Go's opened for them on some of those stops. Prince opened for them and got booed off stage, if you can believe that, which is funny because this is 1981, and then you think that 2 or 3 years later he's going to be one of the biggest people and most famous people of the world, but he got booed off stage. I wish we would have seen them. But ZZ Top, they put on a good show and they were fun to watch. Their music, I'd take it or leave it. But then the Stones came out, and we're right up front there in that crowd of sardine people. And it's Halloween. Mick said on the radio a week or so before the show that he was going to have a special Halloween outfit, which turned out just to be an orange jumpsuit or leotard or whatever, like he wore for all the rest of the tour. Just wasn't orange. So I don't think Halloween's as big a thing in England as it is in America, but he had his orange Halloween costume, and Mick and Keith, and it was great. It's a daytime concert. It started, I don't know, around 1 or 2. ZZ Top started then, and so I guess the Rolling Stones came out around 3 or so. And cloudy, started pouring rain, and I mean pouring. It was just all through the show, just drenched. I had unfortunately bought a tour program as we were going in, so by the end of the show that was just wet, soggy, falling apart. Just had to toss it because it was no good. Fortunately they were still open as we were going out, and I was able to get another one. But I also got, which I still have, my 1981 t-shirt, which is a medium, and if I tried to fit into this now, it'd be like trying to shove a refrigerator into a bread basket. But I wish I was still that small instead of fat and old and young. So it was a great show. Pouring down rain. By the end of the show, we're on the floor of the Cotton Bowl, and the water is like above our ankles. It just didn't stand in water, and we're leaving, and we're trying to get the exits going out are jam packed, so we couldn't do this now. If I tried, I'd slip and break my back, but jump over the railing into the seats, and because those exits didn't look as crowded, we're running up the seats, and it's still pouring rain, and I step on the top of a seat and slip and fall and catch myself, but unfortunately I kneed some chick in the side of the head, not intentionally. Felt terrible. Hope she's okay. Hope I didn't kill her or anything. She seemed to be relatively okay. So feel bad about that, but we got out, and the parking lot, the cars closest to the stadium, still pouring rain. Rain was up to the windows of those cars. I mean, they were underwater. Fortunately, we were out in the outer parking lot that was higher ground, so we didn't have our car drowned. And just a great show, just a wonderful show. I got the album next year, still like the live album from that tour. Not the greatest live album, but it was fun. Saw the movie and all. But just great memories of seeing the Rolling Stones. And we got home, I want to say about 6 or 7 o'clock that night, back to Fort Worth. And I was worn out and went to sleep. And I think that's the only Halloween that I didn't go out running around and doing something on Halloween night. I mean, I don't now because I'm old, but I'm saying back in the day. So, but it was a great show, great memory. And, always will associate this album with that. So with that, we'll actually get to the album instead of my memories of going to a Rolling Stones show. The album opens on side 1 with the lead single from the album, Start Me Up. It got to number 2 in the United States. I think it got to number 10 or something in England. One of their famous songs, been played to death by the radio certainly, but one of their best known songs. I guess it's one of those iconic Rolling Stone riff rocker songs. I don't like it. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. I know a lot of people would probably give that song a 10 or a 9 or something. It's not that it's so much of a terrible song. It's just, I don't know. By that time, it just felt like a retread to me. It felt like, this is Brown Sugar or Jumpin' Jack Flash, or It's Only Rock and Roll, or Tumbling Dice Part 15. I mean, I know that's kind of the Rolling Stone trademark sound on this song and everything, but it was just, enough. It's getting a little tiresome, boys. And so, if the song would have come out 10 years earlier, maybe I would have liked it more. But in 1981, I was just sort of like, it's not a bad song, but I don't like it. I just don't. And I still don't. And it also has that sound. And I was listening to it. I mean, I was listening to this album in preparation for the review quite a few times this last couple of weeks. I meant to do this last weekend, but just ran out of time. It sounds good. It's okay. It to me, this sounds like some kind of mid-level crap band that decides that, hey, on our next song, let's go for that Rolling Stones sound. And so they try to do a Rolling Stones sounding song, and they do, but because they're a crap band, their attempt at a Rolling Stones sounding song is also pretty crap. And while this song really isn't crap, and I know a lot of people like it, it just kind of tedious. It never did it for me. So I'll give it a 6. I truthfully would probably rate it lower than that, but I know that it's a good song and it probably deserves a higher rating. I just don't like it. A lot of people like it though, and it's a classic, and later on it was used for the Microsoft ads in the 90s or whatever. It's a concert staple since then, I believe, and it still shows up on the radio way too much. I don't know. If I never hear it again, I wouldn't. I'm not going to cry. But now we go to Hang Fire, another single from the album. It got number 20. I love this song. This is great. This is I like the do 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 do, the sort of girl group sound introduction with Ronnie and Keith singing. The lyrics cracked us up. We used to laugh about this. You know, nobody ever works, nothing ever gets done. I don't need the aggravation. I'm a lazy slob. A lot of the growling guitars up under the song there, and just a fun song. It's Hang Fires. You know, it's talking about economic conditions in England at the time, and people not wanting to work or not being able to work and so forth. But anyway, it's a fun song for all that. And Hang Fire gets a 10 from me. Now we go to Slave, and this song dates back to the Black and Blue days. And another great song, percussion intro that starts it off is great. That's followed by sort of the mid-pace guitar groove that comes in. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. You've got mixed falsetto, do it, do it, do it. Piano and organ come in. Mick with his sort of scatting and talking and rapping and singing throughout got a great saxophone, the falsetto, the guitar play out towards the end of the song. It's Pete Townsend sings backing vocal on this too. I don't know if he recorded those backing vocals back in 76 or if he recorded them in 81. I'm thinking probably around 76 because they had a whole lot of people in and out during the Black and Blue sessions because they were trying to find their new guitarist since Mick Taylor had quit. And so maybe it's from 76, but I always kind of thought if it was from 81, maybe it's not. I don't know, but I always thought maybe the song Slave inspired Pete to write Eminence Front, the song that was on the 1982 album, Who album It's Hard, because they both have Slave's more upbeat and funkier than Eminence Front is, but they both have sort of that soulful sort of funk groove to them. And maybe there's no connection between the two at all, but that's just a thought that I had. Just a great song. This is not the wacky fun that Emotional Rescue was, but it's a better song than Emotional Rescue, and it's just short of that classic status of Miss You, and yet it's still a classic in its own right. And Slave gets a 10. The song on the album is like 5.5 minutes long. When they remastered or re-released a CD version of this album in the 90s or 2000s, they put out with a longer version that's like 6.5 minutes, which is cool. I could easily go 10 or 12 minutes on this song. It's just such a good stop and go groove to it, and it's a joy of a song. It's a 10. Now we go to the fourth song, the Keith song on the album. I always look forward to a Keith song on the album. Got Little T and A. It's got a really cool intro, the guitar intro. I think it's a much better intro than the Start Me Up beginner of the album. But it's a fun rocker. I mean, it's politically incorrect and naughty, rude, sort of, you know, not much decorum on the lyrics. But it's, you know, it's Keith being Keith, and it's fun. I love the middle, the little instrumental solo breakdown in the middle of the song, and this was a fun one to see him play live in 81 in concert. Not the best Keith song ever. It's not exactly up there with Before They Make Me Run or Happy or some of the others, but it's a fun one. It's pretty much up there, and I like it. I know a lot of people probably would rate this a bit of a throwaway, but I'm going to give it a 10. I saw a video recently of these little school kids at a choir at some school somewhere, and they were singing the medley of Abbey Road, and these are kids that are 8, 10, 12 years old, whatever, and then they had some videos of them singing other songs. I always thought this would be kind of a fun song to have those little kids choir talking about the singing this song. Their parents would throw a fit, but it'd be fun. All right, now we go to the fifth song on side one, Black Limousine. It's a lot of variety on this album, obviously, because these songs came from different time periods, and yet they make a cohesive, flow together, really good album. But it's funny with the scattershot approach of the different eras and the different varieties of music and songs that everything does work and fit together. Black Limousine's your standard sort of up tempo blues rocker that the Stones had done so well, and actually had done a lot better back in the 60s and the 70s on early albums. For all the variety, and this is certainly something a little different, Black Limousine, good song, I like it. Not a great song, it's a little tedious, but it's overall good. Seems a little out of place on the album. It's just not terribly out of place, but it does sort of, when you hit that, you're sort of like, okay, let's get this going on. It's a song about looking back on a relationship that's not what it used to be. I'm going to give it a 7. It's a pretty solid, good song, but it's nothing too terribly interesting about it otherwise. The last song, 6th song on side 1, is Neighbors, and this is one that a lot of people sort of rate as junk or throwaway. I love it. It's talking about people ringing the doorbell all day and all night, sort of harks back to lyrics that Get Off My Cloud. The song about Keith, who kept getting kicked out of apartments in New York because he's Keith, So is Mick writing about that. Great fun. It's just a boom, big, brash, goofy, fun song. You got the classic ping pong ball, Mick Jagger bouncing off the walls. You picture him singing it and just being goofy and jumping all over the place like he does. This song to me just sums up the entire essence of Mick Jagger. Plus it's just fun. It's just he's just shouting, acting crazy and having fun, and it's a good, silly, goofy rocker. I give it a 10. There's a great video for this where they're in a apartment building, like I guess in New York or something, a multi-story apartment building, and Mick's looking out the window and screaming and shouting and singing, and the band are in the apartment playing, and then it shows the other window. It's kind of like a homage to Rear Window. You see inside the windows of the other apartments, both what the way are in and the one across the street, and there's hot chicks going around and people making out, and some guy that's apparently chopping people up and putting them in a suitcase and all that stuff. So fun, goofy video, fun, goofy song. This might well be my favorite song on this album, and I know most people would rate this a lot lower, but Neighbors gets a 10 from me. We go to side 2, which is the ballad side. Worried About You. We got Mick in falsetto mode again. Really nice keyboard work on this. It's an old Black and Blue cut, I believe. Some of these songs actually have Mick Taylor playing on them, 1 or 2 of them, because they were songs from back in the 70s, even though he's not really credited on the album and hadn't been in the band for quite a few years at this time. But nice kickback ballad. It's got a little bit of Moonlight Mile feel or vibe to it. Not quite the classic that Moonlight Mile is, but it's got a really good play out toward the end with some guitars and stuff, sort of a little bit of Exile on Main Street vibe towards the end of the song there. Good solid ballad. I'm going to give Worried About You an 8. Next up is Tops, which has this sort of opens with this sort of cloudy, murky sound. Hey Baby. It's got again kind of a Let It Bleed and Exile vibe, even a little bit to it, even though it's more ballad stuff. Sort of a country rock and soul mix, though it's very 80s sounding at the same time, which again kind of strange because I think this is one of the older songs too. But it's a really affecting song, Tops is, and that gets a 10. Next up is Heaven. A lot of people, this is a favorite. Really haunting, ethereal, kind of like you're floating in the air, dancing in a cloud feel to the song. And it just, I don't think Keith plays on that song. I think it's, I don't think Ronnie or Keith do either. I think it's Mick and Bill and Charlie and some other people. But Heaven is a nice, different sound for the band. Good ballad. It gets a 9. No Use in Crying is up next. Kind of a slinky, sultry ballad. No use in crying over what's done is what done. Don't need to cry over spilled milk. I guess kind of the message of that. Another good ballad. Pretty solid stuff. Gets an 8. The album ends with an out-and-out classic, Waiting on a Friend. This was a single, also got to number 13 in the United States. Kind of a, I don't know what, calypso Cuban music feel to it. Kind of a clip-along, mid-paced ballad. This is the first video I saw on MTV. Not the first video I ever saw on MTV, because cable came to Fort Worth, and it certain parts of the city got it before other parts of the city. So some of my friends had cable and MTV, so I'd seen other videos. I don't remember the actual first video I saw, but when we got cable in our neighborhood and we got it, and I remember I came home from school that day, we were going to get it, they were going to come out that day when I was at school, and we had it, and I turned on and went to MTV, and this is the first video I ever saw. It's a great fun video. Mick and Keith hanging out on the streets of New York, and then they go to a kind of a seedy bar, and there's Bill and Ronnie and Charlie in the bar already, and Bill even moves around a little bit in this video, so that's amazing. And they get up and they play like they're the bar band. Fun video, and just a great song. I mean, this goes back to Goat's Head Soup days, but it just has this ascending build-ups throughout the song. I just call it sort of a ascending, gleeful happiness bubble of a song, and just a wonderful song. It might be it's certainly one of their best ballads, if not, I don't know if it's the best, but it's one of them. And Waiting on a Friend gets a 10. Overall, this album gets a 9. Great memories of 1981 and great memories of this album. Really solid album, and it's almost as good as Some Girls, maybe just a smidge below. But I also think this was really, for all intents and purposes, the end of the band as being a relevant, meaningful entity. The next few albums would have their moments, and we'll get into those when we get to those reviews. But I think this is their last great album. And by great, I don't think this or Some Girls are as great as Between the Buttons or Aftermath or Let It Bleed, Beggar's Banquet, stuff like that, because there's different variations of great, but they're still both great albums. But I think this is their last really important, meaningful, and great album. But we'll get into all that next time around. Tattoo You, I'm sure everybody's heard a lot of these songs, but if you haven't, definitely check it out. It's a 9. It's a great album. Hope everyone has a swell weekend, and I'll be back with some more videos, God willing, someday. See you then.